When I was interviewing for a job at Chrono24, they asked me why I wanted to work here. I said, well, I'm shopping on the app all the time anyway, so I might as well get paid to do it. It's a passion that turned into a profession, and I haven't stopped shopping. And as I've met other collectors and enthusiasts, one of the most fun questions to ask is, so what's next on your list? Today is all about the best/worst part of this job, which is sharing the watches that I'm scoping out in my free time. The holidays are coming up. I'm a believer in treating yourself, and really, who knows you better than you? I'll give you 5 watches from my Chrono24 Notepad. That's it, only 5, and they all happen to be under $5,000. Now that we're on camera, I'm starting to regret this idea, but here's watch number 1. Okay, so they're getting more expensive all the time, and for good reason. A defunct brand called Universal Genève has been having a moment ever since Breitling announced they're reviving them, and that moment is only beginning. Universal Genève is known for having a lot of overlap with Patek Philippe. Watchmakers and designers would go back and forth between the two brands, and one designer who worked for both is a man named Gerald Genta. Legend has it that Genta's first big watch design in his early 20s was the Universal Genève Pole Router. The watch was designed for the first flight over the North Pole from Copenhagen to Los Angeles in 1954. It was also a pioneering watch for micro-rotor movements, which slimmed down the automatic movement by integrating the micro-rotor into the same plane as the rest of the caliber. Accolades aside, it's a beautiful watch. There's a range of dials available, although the crosshair version is the most popular. The shimmering ring on the outside of the dial pulls you in, and the twisted lugs suspend the case like it's floating on air. I'm a big fan of tropical dials, and this watch does them better than almost anybody. I'm not a fan of date windows, but this is one of the few watches where the date window is organically integrated into the design. In most cases, it feels like an add-on that increases the function, but takes away from the purity of the design. The Pole Router is a watch that makes you wonder, with so much going for it, why isn't it more expensive? And for better or for worse, more people are asking themselves the same question. Rolex, ever heard of them? I'm typically not a Rolex guy. I mean, there are so many other amazing brands out there, but I have been crushing on some vintage Rollies lately. Now here's where I'm gonna lose a lot of people. The best Rolex watches for the money are 34 millimeters in diameter. I recently spent a month with the 36 millimeter chronograph, and I also tried on one of Jose Vega's 34 millimeter Rolexes. And honestly, they felt very similar on the wrist. If you have an average or maybe slightly smaller than average wrist, I urge you to consider a 34 millimeter. The range of dials on the market is simply astounding. If you've got 5 minutes, search for 34 millimeter Rolex on Chrono24 and just click through the first few pages. The modern ones are all the same, but the vintage versions, especially the 4-digit references, are a deep well. The prices are also very reasonable. A lot of that's because they're outside of a lot of people's comfort zones. The movements are bulletproof. A watchmaker can restore the water resistance so that you can actually swim with these watches. And again, the dials. All I'm saying is be open-minded and give them a chance. Just don't buy the ones that are on my favorites list. Here's a category of watches you don't see a lot, and that category is dress chronographs. There are plenty of super sporty chronos out there, but what about a gentleman's timing instrument? It's not most people's cup of tea, but say hello to the Girard-Perregaux Richeville. The watch measures 35 millimeters wide by 45 millimeters lug to lug, and only about 11 millimeters thick. So it wears similarly to a 36 millimeter Datejust. You've got a handful of dial styles to choose from, and it's easy to find them with manually wound Lemania movements, which are not too different from the ones used in the Omega Speedmaster. One day, I'll get a Cartier Tortue Monopoussoir, but in the meantime, I wouldn't mind trying out the Richeville. Sorry to be a broken record, but we're talking about an old favorite of mine from Seiko. 1964, Tokyo Olympics, Seiko's first chronograph, a monopusher with a rotating bezel. It's the Seiko 5717 and 5719. We know Seiko, we love Seiko, and this is an easy way to grab a piece of history for a rather reasonable price. The 38 millimeter case is super wearable, and the manual wound movement keeps it light on the wrist. Seiko recently reissued this watch, kind of, but they don't have the charm of the originals. And as with any vintage watch, there are fewer of them available every year. Okay, last watch for today, unless I throw a bonus in. I might throw a bonus in. The Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 57 is a non-diver dive watch and that's why I love it. Inspired by 1950s surf culture, think California, Beach Boys and all that, it's the modern remake of one of my all-time favorite watches, the reference 1004. Sure, the modern remake is a little larger with a 42mm bezel sloping down to a 38mm case, but have you ever seen a diver under 10mm thick? Coming in at just over 9mm, the Super Ocean Heritage 57 is very comfortable on the wrist. The hands and hour markers are just the right kind of funky, and the bezel glides smoothly in both directions. My only complaint is that the watch is a bit shiny and catches a lot of light as it moves around. But the ceramic bezel and sapphire crystal do make it more durable and scratch resistant. I also like that it's not pretending to be this military grade machine. It's light, it's wearable, it's handsome, it's got 100 meters of water resistance, and it's perfect for everyday use. If you do live in a war zone, by all means buy a military grade diver. But if your life is not in danger and you want a watch that does what it's supposed to do and looks really good doing it, consider the Super Ocean Heritage 57. Last one, bonus round, watch number 6 on this list of 5 is the Cartier Santos, reference 2823. It's marked as the extra large, but that's not really accurate. It measures 32mm wide, but that's not really accurate. This is Cartier's answer to the Datejust, and it wears about the same. The curved case hugs the wrist, and it's only about 9mm thick. The proportions on this reference are more balanced than the modern version, and it looks so good when you have it on. You get classic Cartier DNA, and for convenience, they tuck the date window in the least obtrusive spot. They typically sell for a little over $5K, but not by much, and it's worth saving up for. Those are 5 from my list. If you're comfortable, share just one, or better yet, say, hey chat, I'm deciding between this watch or this watch. What do you recommend? I'm Thomas Hendricks of Chrono24. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and we'll see you next time.